Boop 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 boop. Beep boop bop bop. Beep boop bop bop.
Bop bop beep boop bop bop bop.
Boop
Bop,
bop
bop.
beep boop bop bop beep.
Bop bop beep boop bop.
Boop bop beep beep bop bop ba boop.
Ba 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 chicka ba 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 chicka chicka ba do 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 da ba ba.
Okay.
Okay, all right, I've had enough. Is that the new intro?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, if you might be the new intro, it can be the new intro. All right, Brittany. We've gathered here today for a sacred event.
Oh yeah, what's that?
The consumption of delicious frozen beverages.
Uh-huh.
The most sacred of beverages.
Well, mine has tequila in it. I gotta say, this is the drunkest I've ever recorded the podcast.
Wow.
And that's saying something.
This is one of the most sober times I've recorded the podcast.
Yeah.
Well, all right. I'm glad that I'm the more sober one.
I'm glad you're telling the science this time.
It's important. I feel that the biology sciences have somehow been regulated to me for whatever reason.
Yeah, and the astronomy and physics geared ones.
It appears to be that way,
yeah.
yes. Interesting.
That is very interesting.
Suspiciously interesting.
How?
You know what's suspiciously interesting, Brittany?
What's suspiciously
The
interesting?
cute, tiny little fuzzy things that crawl around and fly around.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Fuzzy fuzz, buzz buzz.
Fuzzy fuzz,
Buzz buzz. Fuzzy fuzz, buzz buzz. That's going to be one of the new songs for the Danger Noodles.
Okay, yeah. Fuzzy fuzz, buzz buzz.
Fuzzy fuzz, buzz buzz. And
You couldn't possibly be talking about insects, could you?
very specifically, we're talking about a certain order of insects.
Oh, yeah? And what's that?
The Hemoptera, which are the bees, wasps, and ants.
Really?
So that's the order that we're going to be looking at today, Brittany.
Okay, cool. I really like bugs. I think they're very interesting, and especially those of that class seem very cool. So, what defines something as a human patera?
Did you just say human patera?
He.
I love my human pateras.
Human
So-
patera.
A human patera is known for having chewable mouth parts, complete metamorphosis, and a pair of two membranous wings. Or, in some cases, no wings. But typically, the types of genuses that we'll see is that at least some part of the species, at some part of their life, will have the membranous wings.
Interesting. So, when you say complete metamorphosis, what does that entail?
So there's incomplete metamorphosis where you don't have all the stages of metamorphosis. So sometimes you have the pupa, larval, and adult stage. Sometimes you just have pupil, adult.
Oh.
So that's incomplete metamorphosis.
All right.
Yeah, so you have all the stages, right? So like that's like saying you have a full childhood rather than having to grow up at 13.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so all the little insects get to have a full, juvenile and then child memories stored in their bank when they become an adult, and the only point of their existence. Make a million babies with me. Make a million babies with me. You ever go out into nature and then people are like, oh wow, nature's so peaceful.
Where all the insects are screaming at each other, "Fuck me! Fuck me!"
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's adorable.
Yeah, it's very sweet.
It's so sweet.
Very romantic.
Romantic to just make millions of babies.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Anyways, so this isn't the largest order, but it's one of the largest orders. Typically, the beetles are the largest order of insects, and they have a massive amount of species that have been studied. However, for Hemoptera, there's about 400,000 species globally. Wow. Approximately 36,000 recognized in North America, estimated up to 100,000. So that's about 64,000 that haven't even been studied and recognized in North America alone.
Really?
There remains many undocumented species invading North America right now for the Hemoptera.
Right.
They haven't gotten their papers yet.
Ha.
Ha. Ha.
I like how you wrote insert undocumented immigrant joke here.
Listen, I think about the jokes. When I write the science, all I want to do is make the jokes.
When I write the science, I just write the cold, hard facts.
The whole cold truth.
Just bam, bam, cold. No personality, just pure logic. And then, yeah.
You are the ice queen.
I am.
Okay. So I'm glad we have established that.
Yes.
With your frozen drink of iceness.
Yeah, you have a frozen drink as well.
Yeah,
Mine
but
has
you
tequila.
also ate more ice cream, so you're colder than me right now. So you have two lineages. that are associated with these, right?
Oh yeah, can you tell me about these lineages?
I'm really glad that you pivoted for me to tell you about this lineage. It's great. It's great when you set me up like that. This is like perfect basketball team. You like throw the orange sphere, and then I like place the orange sphere immediately in the holder.
Wow, that was a very accurate description of basketball.
I also don't watch basketball.
Or
is that
any
what
sport?
it's called?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
it's not called hoop sphere.
it's not hoop sphere?
It's not
Dang.
hoop sphere. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
Man, I was watching Hand Egg the other day.
Yeah.
They really know how to handle the egg.
Yeah, they can handle the egg very, very well. Anyway, why don't you tell me about these lineages?
So we have Sympharta and Apocrita.
Sympharta? Don't you mean Symphyta?
Yeah, that thing. Symphyta. So we have Symphyta and Apocrita. So Symphyta are typically the caterpillar larvae types of species. So the plant-feeding species that have the thorax and the abdomen bonded together. And the Apocrita are the grub-like larvae species typically. And those are usually associated with carnivorous, predatorial, or parasitoids. Now, we'll be talking a lot about the parasitoid aspects of these orders later on. One thing that our listeners might be familiar with, at least in the North American and Australian ones that I know of, is we have oak trees have galls, right? So the little tumorous-looking bumps. The relationship to Australia, though, is the wattles, which I've never seen a wattle, but I imagine maybe it's similar in tree aspect.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe our Australian listeners can educate us on what a wattle is like in life.
Our two Australian listeners.
You know, one of them could contact us, Brittany.
Yeah, one of them.
And then they can set us up with an interview with some scientists in Australia, and then we can go to Australia.
Then we'll have an excuse to go to Australia.
I mean, we already have to go talk to the wildlife conservationist specialist about elephants in...
Thailand?
Are they in Thailand?
They are in Thailand.
That's why we have to go there.
Yeah,
so,
that's obviously why we're going to Thailand, because of that, for the podcast.
So the point is that those are an example of those types of parasitoids or nectar feeders that use other species in order to live. Approximately 80% of them are going to be parasitoids or nectar feeders.
Okay, interesting.
Okay, so the Epocritia, as a natural group of insects, they're thought to have a single point of origin, right? So that helps biologists kind of understand how they evolve and grow. And I'm going to point out very specific species here in a minute. We're going to play a fun little game.
Okay, I'm
Okay.
excited for the game. You mentioned the game earlier, and I'm pumped for it.
So we have those guys, right? They're thought to, at least most of the debate, is that they have a single origin, and it helps explain evolutionarily how they develop. The other one that we talked about, do you remember it?
Yeah, the Symphyta?
Those guys.
Yeah.
All right, good. I'm glad you're listening.
Uh-huh.
They
kind of.
are... They're actually debated, and their relationship to each other is a little bit more convoluted about the evolutionary development. So they're thought to be sister suborders that might have different points of origin. Now, this is important for evolutionary biology in the aspect of trying to understand form and function of their bodies.
Okay.
As well as we talked about before, they have that complete metamorphosis. So what is the life of the little baby one? The caterpillar-like ones versus the grub-like ones.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I have a question, Brittany.
Okay.
Have you ever been near some aquatic environment like a lagoon or a lake or a creek?
No, I've never been outside in my life.
Don't you love being outside, Brittany? We were just outside today. We were just near water.
Yes, obviously I have. That was sarcasm.
Have you ever been bitten by any flying things near the water?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. When we went to Florida and checked out the bioluminescent lakes, I was constantly bitten by mosquitoes every second of my life until we left.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, there was a lot of mosquitoes.
There's a lot of mosquitoes in Florida.
Some of them had such large, what are those called, the probes that they used to stick into you, that it felt like a 16 gauge needle going into my leg. Yeah.
Oh yeah, immediately in.
Yeah,
it's almost like
painful.
surgery is being...
Right, yeah, it was awful. So yes, I have been around bodies of water with flying insects that have eaten me.
Actually, some of the larger mosquito species, getting off topic here, can capsize capillary vessels inside of your body.
What?
And they've actually taken some imaging of it so that you can actually see through it, and you see the needle insert into the capillary and suck it so that it actually collapses and breaks down inside of the body.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe that's why I felt like I was dying after.
I mean, Florida's not so bad. If you go to Alaska, though, or some of the colder regions, they are much more aggressive and typically larger. They are dormant for much more of a longer period of time when it's cold, but during the summertime, they come out with a vengeance. And there are many mooses. Meese.
It's a proletariat of meese.
Right. Many proletariats of meese have had individuals die of dehydration because mosquitoes will suck them dry up there. That's how
really
violently aggressive they are.
That's pretty aggressive. Meese are huge.
Meese are huge.
Way bigger than humans.
So the point, going back to the Hemiptera, is that they have also developed aquatic relationships, and many species, about 150 in North America, have looked at this parasitoid activities, specifically in freshwater. The habitat is important because, according to Bennett in 2008, they were able to identify at least 50 of these species that independently developed this aquatic association. So there's a relationship in between laying some of your eggs in order to be hatched near the aquatic association, which other bugs are perfectly fine only doing it in trees or only doing it in the dirt.
Right.
The major categories here that we can look at for the aquatic relationship of the Hemiptera is, one, the species in which females enter the water and seek aquatic hosts, right? So, as I said before, about 80% of them are parasitoids, so they have to find some type of host. They are obligatory parasitoids.
All right.
The other one, species with endoparasitoid larvae, they also seek aquatic larvae host, and even if the rest of their life is in the terrestrial land, they typically have the aquatic start, right? The aquatic upbringing. So they're starting in the wet wriggliness of the water, and then they can birth out and become one with the terrestrial land and wreak havoc on whatever they want.
Okay, so almost like amphibious insects. Interesting.
So, and then the other one is species in which newly emerged adults have to travel to water surface after pupation.
What does pupation mean?
Pupation? After becoming a pupe. You never had to be a pupe before?
No, I don't think I've ever been a pupe.
Oh, when you're leaving your juvenile stage, and you're like, maybe I'll take out all the piercings and dye my hair back to a normal color and go get a job.
Oh yeah, I do remember that stage. That was a depressing part of my life. But now I'm back in grad school, so now I have blue hair again.
Do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So, Brittany, let's talk a little bit more deeply about the evolutionary biology and some of the relationships that these Hemiptera have, right?
Right.
So I'm going to ask you a very basic biology question. Listen, Brittany, do you know about how the taxonomy is related in rank?
No, I don't, actually.
You don't?
No. I know very little about
it's,
biology.
It's in front of your face, if I were to give you a hint.
It's in front of my face. Okay. Let's see what's in front of my face. There's a mic in front of my face. And then there's a monitor in front of my face. There's you in front of my face. There's a wall in front of my face.
Last episode, I was a lot nicer to you. All right, moving on. Moving on. You have domains, kingdoms, phylums, class, order, family, genus, species, right?
Sure.
Thank you. Really glad you pulled out on this one for me.
I really don't know. I've taken one biology class in university.
That's fine. Okay. Animal kingdom. We have the insects, right? Class and order. So we're talking about the Hemiptera order. And just within the Hemiptera order, right? So I just wanted to lay out that taxonomy phylum, right? So a species is, like humans, right?
That's why I don't know, because you need to scroll on my side. So now that it's in front of my face, I can tell you that there are species, genus, family, order, class, phylum, kingdom, and domain.
Right. So species is just like Homo sapiens, which is the genus and species, which is typically how we report it, so that you can specify one particular type of creature. But we're from species to genus, family, order. We're stopping at order. So in Hemiptera, which I just wanted to show that taxonomy ranking to exemplify the massive amount of species that are related with this. So studying those, typically the ones that have been studied are the eusocial types of creatures.
What's eusocial?
Eusocial, you being true, social being social class. So a eusocial is typically the types of animals or insects where they all work together. You can almost think of it as a hive mind, right? You have a queen, you have all the workers, you have the nursing ants, and they all work together, and they're not worried about propagating their own DNA, right? They're not worried about their individual self. They're worried about the entire colony.
Okay, so they're mostly focused on the queen, protecting the queen, working for her.
But the queen is also working for all the drones. And
yeah, okay. So, like, it's a form of communism, but it actually works.
Like a hive mind, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
They're all working together. So this has been developed evolutionarily, especially in this order, so that they can actually survive and grow despite some of the hardships that they have to undergo, being so eeny, bitty, and tiny, and many millions of them, if not billions, consumed so vastly by other hungry mammals and fish and basically anything else that'll eat it.
Right.
That's one of the things that have been highlighted, especially by many of the biologists that study these creatures, is that there's so few researchers for the number of insects being available, right?
Right.
So you have so many like marine mammal scientists, and you look at all the entomologists, right? So the ratio of marine mammals available to marine mammal scientists to insects to entomologists is vastly different.
Oh yeah.
So there's a lot of hidden understanding that we can have, and you can look at the aspects of how we can introduce more research into it, not only in terms of conservation and the development of the ecosystem and understanding the nuances there, but also many of these insects we can actually learn some of the more natural products that can be acquired from them, whether for medicine or pesticides or antibiotics or further natural products, which I don't think we've talked about many natural products before, that'll be another topic.
Okay, yes.
So, Brittany, thank you for that pivot and that question. That was great. That was really great.
Yeah, Yeah, the pivot, yes. I'm supposed to be pivoting. So
No, it's not fine. I'll do it.
So,
okay.
No. So speaking of the large amounts of insects and the small amounts of entomologists, what are some examples of entomologists studying certain types
What are examples of entomologists? I'm not talking about individual entomologists. I didn't do any research on individual entomologists, nor did I look up and see what their personalities are like and who they are as people. But I will say, Brittany, on the other hand,
yes,
because of these eusocial creatures, there's many studies into them because of the sheer weight of numbers, right? So the sheer vastness of the numbers of insects in these orders make them very important to study. And as an example of that, Brittany,
sheer weight of numbers, like an army almost.
Yes, like an army. If you look at humans, as far as individuals, we're very small compared to insects.
Right.
And we're about to explain that. So, as an example, the army ant, and I will butcher all of these Latin names.
Please do.
Eciton burcellii is what I'm going to call these guys.
It looks like Eciton burchelli.
Burchelli?
Burchelli.
I'll say burcellii.
Burcelli? Burcellii?
Yeah, there's an I at the end.
Yeah, Burcellii. But that would be like two I's.
Burcellii?
Burchellier? Burchelli.
Listen, instead of worrying about the Latin that needs to be talked about here, they are typically found on the Barrow, Colorado island near Panama. So they comprise about 50 colonies. Each colony consists of about a single queen and about 400,000 sterile worker ants. So that's about 20 million individual ants that are present in just 1,500 square meters.
Wow, that is a large amount of individuals in one small area.
Oh yeah. So that's one of the effects of having these eusocial creatures is you have a few designated roles for each individual, and you can have massive amounts of sterile workers that are constantly going and working, right? So if you didn't have to worry about appropriating, then do you know how much work you can get done? The insects have figured it out, Brittany.
Have they?
Some people are relegated to reproduction. Some people are relegated to working. And no one complains because everything gets done for the betterment of the colony. Now, there have been some interesting sociological studies on the development of this type of eusocial interaction for humans, especially with the growing industry of pornography and the working class of many businessmen and women that are so busy working hard that they typically utilize either pornography or, in more extreme cases, cuddling services. They are looking at this idea of people are falling into these types of segregating work patterns.
That's very interesting. So, for example, the people that I know who have popped out like 7 kids since they graduated high school, those are like, you know, the queens almost.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you put it that
Whoops. Well, there's accident number 5.
Right. I'm really glad none of the people that you...
Oh, no, do you think
they're
these
not gonna
people would
listen.
listen to a science podcast? Are you crazy?
Wow, you're really bashing them hard. Wow.
Yeah, well.
If the queens in these colonies, if they were to mate only once, the effective population size is only about 75, right? So that's much smaller than the consensus population. And this kind of shows the vulnerability that some of these particular habitats have, right? So if you start destroying some of these areas where there's only 50 colonies and these females have to mate constantly in order to get those numbers of 400,000 sterile worker ants, then even impacting part of that rainforest area will completely wipe out some of the capabilities for these colonies to bounce back.
Right.
And this goes in with acquiring resources, logging, or human settlements, which have rapidly destroyed many of the rainforest areas, as well as starting fires and other pollutants that humans will produce near these rainforests.
It's not surprising. I feel like anytime that there's any kind of stress in the environment, it's usually our fault.
So, as we were saying, with the destruction of some of those habitats, you start having less interbreeding of these colonies, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have more intrabreeding within those colonies.
So you have a bunch of incestuous hillbilly ants instead. Yes, exactly.
And we all know what that leads to.
West Virginia?
Wow, you were just ragging on West Virginia today.
Oh,
that is rough. That is real rough. Okay, Brittany, I believe it is time for our game.
Oh, game! Yay!
Okay.
So I'm excited.
We're going to do a small little game where I'm going to show you some stuff.
Okay.
Specifically, some insects, and you're going to describe them to our listeners, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about them.
Okay.
So this is going to be the first one.
Okay. All right. So it has a pretty big thorax. It has some membranous wings.
Yeah, but how does it make you feel?
I don't know. It looks pretty cute. I think it looks cuddly. I like it. It has an itty bitty waist and a round thing in your face.
That it does have an itty bitty waist. You are right.
Yes.
So this is actually Vespa crabro, which is a European species, or the European hornet, that many people don't like. And one of the examples of why conservation is important for these types of creatures is that this guy is really cool and he's an exception to the rule. But many social or eusocial Hemipterum, whenever they get outside of their particular range of habitats, completely thrown off. They're incapable of invading that area.
Okay.
It's very difficult for them because they've developed such a niche eusocial colony and where everyone has very designated jobs that if you were to take them and put them in a new environment, many of the species are unable to make it.
Okay.
This guy's really cool in that he actually has overcome that. In 1950, as we had the huge economic boom after World War II, and we were building and building, right? So you had all the baby boomers, your families are being developed, and you had this massive increased need for buildings, homes, and construction, right? Mm-hmm. And we were logging and logging and logging. Well, one of the problems that we had was that many forest caterpillars were outbreaking and eating many of the new fresh trees. So in the 1950s, we actually took this Vespera cabro and deliberately introduced it into North America to eat those caterpillars. So it's one of the few examples where some of these eusocial creatures are actually able to invade and propagate successfully into other natural habitats.
Okay, interesting. So is it now considered an invasive species?
I mean, it's been naturalized at this point, right? You stay here long enough, you basically become one with the land.
Right.
So it's no longer... Is kudzu
Kudzu is still considered an invasive
Still
species.
invasive? Really?
Yeah.
Because pretty much it's just going to be the only thing here.
Yeah, eventually.
Eventually.
Yeah, especially the further south you get.
All right, Brittany. I'm gonna have you describe this one now.
Okay, well, it looks like these are performing a very interesting sexual act. It's like a reverse 69.
A 96?
Actually, yeah, a 96.
Okay.
Why are these wasps 96?
I'm glad to see that's the one image that you picked up on.
Yeah,
here.
why wouldn't I pick up on that one?
I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. Do these look familiar to you?
Yeah, they do look very familiar to me, actually. I think I've seen them buzzing around some places where there's a lot of wood. Sometimes I see them around my garden, and they are quite aggressive.
Vespula, or more commonly known as yellow jackets, and typically hated by most people. There's some cool things about them, and there's some painful things about them, right? So they are able to build huge nests, which is one of the reasons why they're relatively ubiquitous, is that these eusocial creatures are another example. Some of the rare ones that are capable of, after they build a large colony, they can just aggregate and continue to grow their range from there, right? And then they start making almost like satellite colonies. One of the largest nests was reported in New Zealand that weighed about 45 kilograms.
Wow.
One nest.
Wow.
45 kilograms.
That's insane.
Right? That's massive. They're super abundant, and they're able to grow to massive, massive numbers. So, as an example, the Vespulas in Maui, one nest alone was found to have over 600,000 individual wasps inside of it.
Wow, that sounds awful.
Can you imagine being the little kid that whacks that nest with a stick?
Oh God, no. The only time I've ever been stung was by a yellow jacket, and that was traumatizing enough. I can't imagine stumbling across 600,000 of them at once.
Yeah. So you can see that just by sheer numbers, these guys are able to transform the natural habitat that's around them. So if they're able to transform it and control it, then they spread easily. That's why we consider some of the implications for these.
Okay, interesting. All right, what's the next thing? What's the next thing you're going to show me? More sexual...
There's no weird sexual
insect
acts.
porn.
This is not insect porn.
With your 96ing yellow jackets.
What?
Anyway. Okay.
Jeez.
All right.
Okay, what do these guys look like to you?
They look like ants. Well, one of them looks like a kangaroo ant. He's like spring-spronging off of his back legs. Just sprung.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. That's perfect. I'm sure the listeners know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Just imagine an ant with kangaroo legs just spronging off the back of his legs.
All right. So this one, Lima pathina, or typically the Argentinian ant, is a good example of a certain collection of the Hemiptera that we want to look at. These ants, sometimes in North America, a related species will be the fire ant. Yeah? No? Not as fun?
Not a fan of fire ants.
Not a fan of fire ants?
Oh,
What about
no.
the kangaroo ant that we have here?
He looks more fun.
He looks more fun
Yeah, when...
as he hops
Yeah.
several feet onto the mid-waist of your body instead of just your ankles.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so when I was a kid, I fell into a fire ant nest in Florida when I lived there, and I got over 150 bites all over my legs. So I think it would have softened the blow a little bit if I saw them spronging everywhere instead of, just digging into my flesh.
Okay.
I've been like, oh, well, at least this is fun to watch.
The related fire ants, people know that they're pretty good at building their nests, right? Wherever they want.
Right.
And they darn well don't care whether you want their nest there or not.
Yeah, they will build it, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, this Argentinian ant, or as you like to say, kangaroo ant, they also hold another trophy in the Hemiptera world, and actually one amongst most species. They are known for having super colonies, right? So one super colony takes up an enormous area. So with very little genetic variety, over 1,000 kilometers in the... one example, Brittany, is a single super colony with very little genetic variety can reach over 1,000 kilometers.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah. So huge colonies alone. So some of the largest ones, I'll tell you about two super colonies. Particularly in southern Europe, they can span a distance of 6,000 kilometers from Italy to the Atlantic coast of Spain.
Wow.
And this has been dubbed the largest cooperative unit ever recorded. And this was in 2002 by Gilead
Wow.
and Associates.
They seem more cooperative than humans actually do.
Yeah. So, again, you have all of these massive super colonies that are like a hive mind. And that's exactly what it is. That's typically why we call it a hive mind, is you no longer think about the individual, you only think about the colony.
Right.
So I don't even know if you would call that communism, because that's better than communism. That's beyond communism.
Yeah.
That's,
ultra communism.
I guess, if you want to consider ultra communism, because
Yeah.
even in communism you have the collection of resources and the allocation of resources, right?
Right.
And in this case, it's pure acquisition only for the betterment and continuation of the colony.
Okay. So uber inverse communism?
Sure.
I'm just spitting out words now.
You're just word salad. Okay, so the opposite of that, Brittany, what would you think the opposite of that would be?
So a insect that don't give a fuck, that is a lone wolf, don't need nobody else. They're just on their own. Oh, it's so cute and fuzzy. Aw, I love it so much. Is that a bumblebee?
So this is Bumpus Franklini. I'm glad that you pointed out the anarchistic Hemiptera, but this one, on the other hand, is still a type of social creature.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of having over 6,000 kilometer wide super colonies, they have only been seen and only studied in Oregon and Northern California, about 190 miles by 70 miles. So just that square, and they have not been found outside of that. So this is actually, this is one of the most strict habitating Hemiptera.
Okay, interesting. So do they know why they won't venture outside of this area?
They actually have looked at their nests, and unlike other Hemiptera that like to build their own nests, they typically use rodent burrows. So the rodents in that particular area, typically their burrows will be used by these creatures. And the other problem is that in that area, many of them have been on a population decline since the 90s. So from their studies, they actually don't know if it's extinct now or not, because the last one that was seen was in 2012. So they may or may not even be existent anymore, but they've
Really?
been
Wow.
trying to study this further. And one of the hypotheses for why they're in that particular area is a requirement for the rodent burrows, as well as the rich flora resources over these areas that are
Okay.
very specific for its pollination.
Interesting. That's really sad because they're so cute. They're very fuzzy and very fat.
Right? Look at how fat they are.
I know. They're adorable. What's the next thing you're going to show me?
What's the next thing? Okay.
Okay, this bee is enormous. It's so big, and it has like little chompy chomps on the front of its face, and it's scary. And I don't know if I like it or not.
Oh no?
Yeah.
How is that a face you can't love?
Oh my god, that's terrifying. I don't like it.
So this is Wallace's bee, or C. Pluto. So this also has another trophy, which is why we're talking about it for the Hemiptera. This is the world's largest bee, and it was presumed to be extinct, and it was originally studied in 1859 by A.R. Wallace, which is how it got its name. And it has a very peculiar mandible set for Hemiptera, if you take a look at it.
Yes, it's terrifying. A very terrifying mandible set.
So this is only found on a few islands, particularly in Melusa, and they weren't observed for quite some time. But then, in about the 80s, we started seeing resurgence of some of their population popping back up. So these are really cool. The other thing about what made it difficult for us to study it in between the 1860s and the late 1900s was they were actually associated with the lowland forest. Particularly, they were parasitoids for the termite genus Microceratomus. And after they started studying these termites, they actually started to see these bees again.
Mm-hmm.
Which you would think something that massive you would see more often.
Right, it's huge. Like, I see a comparison here to a normal sized bee, and that thing is at least 10 times bigger.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Even though people have tried to look for it, its appearance is very rare, but quite massive. And you can see that by its size I don't know. If I was that size, maybe it would be a lot of energy for me to fly around, which is maybe why it has this parasitoid interaction with this termite species.
Right. It's just like, oh God, it's so hard to fly.
Talking a little bit more about it, those mandibles, it has a very unusual lifestyle where the females, in which we're showing you here, possess really enlarged mandibles in which it gathers resin from the trees. So this resin mixed with wood fragments is typically what they use to line the nesting tunnels in the arboreal nests, where the termite host will actually be obligatorily associated with them. Now you have almost eusocial creatures going beyond just their own species. So you have these Wallace bees living in conjunction with these termites, which have been designated obligatory association. This was in 1984.
So does it get to the point where it's no longer considered a parasitoid but a symbiotic relationship with these termites?
It's arguable that this one particularly is symbiotic because they live with each other, even though the termites are, I guess, they're fed and they're enslaved kind of to dig through the nest and create the wood fragments. And then the massive bees, the Wallace bees, kind of like, all right, well, I've had enough of you. You can leave now. And then they build their own nest.
Oh, I was imagining this beautiful relationship, and that's a lot darker and sadder.
I mean, maybe it's beautiful. I've never, listened to one of their conversations.
Yeah.
Maybe it's more loving and romantic.
Oh, you think so? All right, hit me with the next thing. This one looks like a ant, but it has really, really long mandibles, and it has a really big thorax. Not an ant that I think I've seen around here.
Well, it is not an ant that you would see around here. This is the macrops, or as many entomologists have deemed this, the living fossil. So these are some of the oldest known lineages of Hemiptera, and these are typically found in southern Australia. May I have water?
Yeah. Well, here's your water. Clean this up.
They're typically found in southern Australia. Now, an interesting thing about these guys is they are nocturnal foragers, and typically they operate at low temperatures on Mallee eucalyptus. Right?
Right.
I mean, who doesn't love eucalyptus?
Yeah, it's great. It's edible only by a few species, right?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's it's poisonous to most species except for koalas, and I guess apparently these things.
I suppose so. Mm-hmm. Yeah, huh? At least I like the smell. Mm-hmm. I've never eaten it.
Yeah, you shouldn't, because it's poisonous.
Unless I'm a koala. Or this ant.
Yeah, that's very interesting though, because I did not know that there were any ant species that were nocturnal foragers or considered living fossils.
Yeah, I mean, you have certain creatures deemed living fossils because of longevity of their lineage, right? So horseshoe crabs are typically looked at as living fossils.
Like even crocodiles.
Crocodiles, 540 million years of evolutionary biology as an apex predator. Its morphology has not changed, Brittany.
Right. It doesn't need to. It's perfect.
Perfect killing machine.
Yeah.
For a brief period of time, Brittany, it was no longer the apex predator.
Oh, yeah?
It was cocaine bear. Cocaine bear was the apex predator.
For 5 minutes.
The prime, most dangerous single entity in the entire world.
Yes. I mean, what could be more dangerous than a bear that has eaten $15 million of cocaine? Pablo Escobar.
Pablo Escobar. We should do a tribute to Pablo Escobar.
Should we?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not doing any cocaine.
No, not. I meant a episode tribute, a music tribute.
Oh, okay.
Not,
we're gonna do cocaine as a tribute to Pablo Escobar.
Why does your mind always go there? Why can't it be like, oh yes, Joel, you're right. Let's do this nice tribute to Pablo Escobar.
Because your mind never goes there.
It doesn't. Don't be wrong with me.
Yeah.
But Brittany, sometimes my mind goes towards conservation.
Oh yeah? Yeah, it does.
Which is why we're going to talk about elephant conservation.
Yes, absolutely. Elephants are my favorite animals, and therefore they should be conserved.
The microps, arguably by Taylor, who studied these in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s, talked about the necessary need to look at some of the Hemiptera conservation because of the effects on the ecosystem in southern Australia, specifically on the eucalyptus trees. There was some evidence in their value for helping the eucalyptus population, which in turn helps the other parts of the ecosystem. But in 1999, there was a petition to the Commonwealth Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act, but it was deemed not eligible on the grounds that there was no evidence for the decline in the abundance or distribution or tangible threat. But the problem that they had in putting forth this species is that there wasn't enough data to show the decline in population, even though there was a trend towards it. There just was missing data points because of the lack of scientists available to study it.
I see. So once again, it comes into that problem of not enough entomologists for all the different species we're looking at.
Exactly. So we're seeing a common theme here.
Raspberry crazy ant. All right. Wow, this guy does look pretty crazy. He has a big old thorax. Very shiny. Is he crazy about raspberries? Is he crazy and raspberry colored? Or is he really crazy and farms raspberries? Or what's with the name?
Oh no, I liked all the stories you were coming up with.
Okay.
Please don't let me interrupt.
Okay,
But if you
right.
actually want information,
I want real information.
these ants, the raspberry crazy ants, as they're called, they are typically found in the Mexico, Texas area, southern United States, Central America. These I want to use to exemplify formicide ants, which they can bite but they don't sting. And can you guess why they're named the way they are?
I'm gonna guess because they go crazy on people
They-
for fucking with their raspberries.
Yes, sure, we'll go with that. So they are called crazy because they have unpredictable and seemingly
Wow, that was a crazy look right there. Speaking of crazy.
yeah. So they're called crazy because they have seemingly weird and sporadic movements, almost like they're dancing for no reason. We don't see the concepts of, say, fun or entertainment
Right.
occur, right? They don't
Yeah.
sit around a little ant bonfire and be like, yeah, man, did you see that? That was a crazy caterpillar the other day. Whoa.
You don't see them making music or stories or playing sports or D&D or anything like that.
Right, so that's one of the reasons why they're called crazy ants is they have sporadic, seemingly non-logical spasms, movements, and almost dancing activities. Now, they're called formicide ants, Brittany. Can you guess why?
Well, icide means kill. Form. I don't know what form would be.
It's because they produce formic acid.
Oh,
So, like I said, they can bite but not sting. Right,
interesting.
and you can see that they're attacking these people over here.
Why is that guy just sticking his hand in this nest of them?
Because you have to study what the bite effects are.
Oh, yeah. Biologists are pretty crazy.
You have to... I mean, chemists back in the 1980s used to lick chemicals in order to identify them.
That is
So-
true. Yeah, mouth pipetting.
Mouth pipetting. You can identify different acids by the way they taste.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, so if you ever want to have a crazy idea of what the 1900s chemists did, you can go look up the taste and flavors of different acids. Like nitric acid tastes way different than sulfuric acid.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I guess I'm not one to talk.
So, Brittany, they create formic acid so that when they bite you, produce formic acid inside of either your skin or whatever they're biting in that particular case, right? Nucleic acid is not a good thing to have unnecessarily unless it's produced by your own body. And even then, you only want it in the place that your body produces it.
Right. Very specific amounts.
Right. So, otherwise, it produces a minute pain in a human, but it fades very quickly. Interesting enough, formic acid, when we had first discovered it, was because we distilled it from these ants.
Really?
Yes.
What?
Yes. So this was in the 17th century when we first realized that formic acid exists, is because we distilled it from these ants.
Huh. That's really interesting. I did not know that.
I thought that was. Never mind. I'm done with you.
I said that's really interesting. What more do you want?
Nothing. I want
do
nothing.
Do you want me to just keep, exclaiming?
No.
I'll keep exclaiming.
No.
Wow,
Okay.
formic
All right,
acid
stop.
distilled from
I'm
these
done.
ants. Wow, Joel, that's so
You know what else
interesting.
is
Joel,
interesting?
that's
You
so
know what else
interesting.
is
That's so
interesting?
cool.
What?
Formic
Do you
acid
think
distilled
that
from
listeners
the
really
ants?
want to listen to you
Distilled
bicker with
from
me
ants?
unnecessarily?
What?
You're not even listening to me anymore. Sorry, I'm cutting off the recording until you behave.
Okay, I'll behave.
All right, you done?
Yeah.
All right. You know what else is interesting, Brittany? One thing that's been noted is that there's colonies of these ants, and for whatever odd reason, they appear to be attracted to electrical equipment.
Really?
Yep. One of the hypotheses is that it's the magnetic fields around the wires that they're excited about. The other one is that they particularly prefer the warmth due to the resistance going through the wires. Mm-hmm. But what's interesting is that they will typically go over and chew on it for whatever reason. And because of that acid, they're able to dig through the wires. As they chew through the insulation, they'll get fried, right? Uh-huh. What happens when you electrocute an ant?
I'm gonna guess you have a very crispy ant.
Okay, you have a crispy ant. That's a good one. Uh-huh. The other thing that happens when an ant dies is that it produces pheromones so that other ants around it will realize that there's a predator that just killed one of their mates. And then all of those come rushing in and bite whatever is near that dead ant.
Oh, so they'll all start biting the electrical equipment and all get electrocuted.
Right.
Okay.
So they'll all die from the electrocution. / they'll also short circuit many systems because of this.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, not entirely sure why they're interested in this, but they will eat through your electrical wires, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I've never heard of an ant that would do that. But since they do dance around and they're interested in electronics, I wonder if that is, a precursor to a different type of ants that might evolve further in the future that's really into raves.
The rave ant?
Uh-huh. Yes, exactly.
I can see a rave ant coming from this.
Yeah, you think so?
Oh yeah. These are some pretty cool insects, right? Mm-hmm. They seem interesting to you?
Yeah, they're very interesting to me, actually.
There's a lot of talk about trying to study these more, and, we complain about funding for science nowadays, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
complain about it all the time. Where's my funding? Why am I still TAing?
That's a huge problem for many scientific fields. But in the realm of applied science, materials science, and other things that directly relate to things such as defense contracts, it's much easier to get funding.
Right.
Now, if you were to look at entomology, right? Can you imagine how much harder it is to get entomology funded versus material science for some type of composite that the Air Force could use?
Yeah, that's very true. Like, it's, you think about things that most of society deems useful, and you don't typically think of insects.
Yeah.
Which is sad, because they are very important to our ecosystem. So.
Oh, massively important. So, speaking of the conservation, for the conservation of Hemiptera, it's been looked at in a couple of different aspects. So, one being the well-known and sympathy received from different groups for increasing public awareness of both the decline and consequence of the destruction of not only our Hemiptera friends, but also the pollinators. Mm-hmm. So, the Hemiptera, since we've gone through it, you've seen a lot of them encompass the bees and the wasps, which are massively important for pollinating and continuing to have trees that not only keep us alive, but keep the ecosystem alive as well.
Exactly. We wouldn't have most of our food if it wasn't for these pollinators.
Yes. The other point that many entomologists will use is some of these species are also pest species, right? Mm-hmm. So even in their natural range, they're widely abundant and they're typically considered undesirable. Right. And we have to look at the effects of these insects before we start destroying and moving some of their habitats. Mm-hmm. Some of them, for example, mosquitoes. I've never talked to anyone that's thought a mosquito is important for the ecology of any habitat, because mosquitoes don't really serve a purpose and there's no creature that survives solely on mosquitoes as a food source.
Yeah, that's true. Mosquitoes kind of worthless, yeah.
So mosquitoes could disappear forever and nothing would be bothered. And is that true for some of these pests? So if we get rid of the yellow jacket, will that cause a big problem, or will people just be able to enjoy their picnics better?
That's true. I never thought of the consequences if something like that would disappear.
That's something else that we can study, and by studying it, we could potentially, for people to care, you often have to relate it to them and how it could benefit them.
Right.
In this particular case, you could make the fire ants go away and the yellow jackets go away, and if you like camping, get rid of some of the biting bugs that go away, if we can actually utilize it in a particular manner where we're not affecting the ecosystem. Right. So that's one way that some of the entomologists have used to argue for funding not only the research but the conservation of Hemiptera studies.
Right. I mean, in a perfect world, I feel like a lot more research would get funded anyway. Because I think not only do we need to look at research that is important to us practically, but also to expand our horizons and learn more stuff about the world.
Oh, I absolutely agree, without a doubt. And the last point I'll bring up, Brittany, that is often used as a heralding point for not only research but also conservation is just the pure vast number of undocumented and unknown species that are out there.
There's a lot. I mean, we already know that there's this massive amount of species that we talked about before, and just... I'll hold the microphone for the rest of it. This massive amount of species that we talked about before, but then imagine all the species that we have no idea about that are in these far off reaches that we've never even inspected before. So it's something that is kind of beyond our capability of understanding of how much we don't know.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The other thing is, you can also weaponize and utilize these insects, right? So these are developed through billions of years of evolutionary biology to now these very particular niche formed groups that we can use to benefit not only us, but the ecosystems in other places. So we can weaponize them, Brittany. We can utilize them. We can build them bigger. We can build them stronger.
Faster.
Right. So all important things for conservation, Brittany. Yeah?
Yeah. Very, very important for conservation. We should always fund anything dealing with conservation, unless it's mosquitoes. I don't think anybody's going to push for mosquito conservation, however.
I agree. Well, that's all I had.
Yeah, all you had. Well, that was a fun game. I enjoyed playing that. I enjoyed Identify the Insect.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed playing the game. Hopefully the listeners like the game too.
Yeah, hopefully. We can post a few pictures.
We can absolutely post some pictures.
Yeah, especially the 96ing Yellow Jackets.
Why does that one interest you the most? Not the Wallace Bumblebee?
No. Wait, do we have any children that listen to this? Anybody
do you think children listen to this?
Fuck no.
Why are you cursing again? We're never going to get to the younger audience with your potty mouth.
And the 96ing Yellow Jackets. Are you done with me?
For this episode, yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's fair.
Well, I've been Joel, and Brittany's been Brittany.
Oh yeah, I've been Brittany on a lot of tequila.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to watch you the next time we record.
Yeah. Anyway, Joel, you know what people should do if they've enjoyed this episode? They should contact us. And you know how they should contact us?
How should they contact us?
They should contact us through our social media on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram under PRTcast, and they could also email us at prtcast@gmail.com.
That sounds great.
Yeah, they should totally do it.
They should. I agree.
Yeah. Also, if they really like us, they should donate to our Patreon. So we have a Patreon at PRTcast.
That would be nice. Even $1.
Yeah. Honestly, at this point, even like a penny.
I feel like I'm hollering for $1.
Yeah, I'm shimmying for a penny in.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Yeah,
So, it's been a great episode.
Mm-hmm.
And if I sound sniffly, it's because I'm allergic to Brittany.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. You're so allergic to me.
Yeah. And next week, Brittany.
Next week, we're going to be talking about black holes. Black holes, not like my heart, but black holes in space. How we can detect them, what supermassive black holes are, and the depictions that we've seen in both fictional universes and the most recent update as far as what we can actually see with a black hole. So you remember the news story a few months ago about how we have the first image of a black hole. So we'll be getting a little bit more into that.
Wow, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too, because I love space stuff. So it'll be another space episode, and I'm very excited about it.
Another space episode.
Woo! Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been a great episode, guys.
Yep.
Hope you enjoy.
Yep.
And we look forward to hearing from some of our fans.
Yes, we do. So we will give you a new episode next week.
All right. Till next week, guys.
Till next week.